I know there's a few of you in the audience, there's probably more than one or two, that have memories of the Boca Grande Hotel. So at that time afterwards, we'd love for you to share. You don't have to share on the microphone, but just enjoy this presentation. There's so many pictures and so many things, and I think we're going to have number 1 and maybe number 2 next season, because I don't think they'll get it all in time. But let me just get the high sign if it's time to start.
Yeah, there's Robert's pointer.
Okay. So,
Sing a song.
I don't think you want me to do that, but I can tell you a story. I'll just have one quick little memory to share about the Boca Grande Hotel that I have. The Women's Club used to hold fashion shows there back in the 50s. And I remember having a couple pretty little dresses, and I got to walk down this stage. And it was built up. I bet Patricia she was doing it too. And somewhere I've got pictures I've got to give the Historical Society. But the Boca Grande Hotel, I was always in awe of it. It was a fun place to go as a child, and later years as a teenager, and just driving down that road to those beautiful palms and go in and look at that inside that building. And later years, I was old enough to actually go to the bar and have a drink. But there was never usually anyone there. It was always kind of spooky and a little bit quiet. Even in the early 70s, you might be the only people in there, and it was, kind of had a little eerie feeling. But a lot of stories about it, a lot of stories from my mom and my dad, who shared a lot of time there too. So there's going to be a fun presentation. Okay, I think we're waiting for Captain Robert, who's our historian, and he will be in just a minute.
That's it. Make sure everybody if you could just announce.
Does everyone have a pamphlet on Joseph Spadaro?
You don't? All right, I'll pass them out.
Just hold up your hand if you don't have one. And also circulating that notebook of Patty Middleton's artwork, if you just want to pass it around and share it, if anyone wants to look at that. This is a great crowd. If we need to get a couple more chairs, we'll be able to, but we have a few still around here too, so. So I'll just start with just a few minutes. Everybody knows who I am, but I'm Betsy Fugate Joyner, raised in Boca Grande, 3rd generation of Boca Grande, and also 5th and 6th generation family, still continuing. I feel like I still am living in Boca Grande. I have this program is for this history bite of the 4 weeks is in honor and memory of our artist historian Patty Middleton. Patty was an avid historian. She gave countless hours to not only this history center, but also the one in Lemon Bay and Inglewood. And she did beautiful wildlife paintings, and her artwork graced many tarpon brochures, T-shirts, glassware. You could see her art on many locations in Boca Grande. Probably most homes have a painting, at least one. Someone here said they have 3. I'm lucky enough to have a couple. And in Scarpa's bar, there's a mural that Patty painted. There's also a mural in the upstairs in the theater mall depicting the old movie theater. There's a mural on the 1st Street of Sam Whidden's, Captain Sam's boats, and this kind of little story about Whidden's Marina and Sam. This logo from Johann Frost Library, Patty created. Patty created so many of our local artwork to represent the different organizations, and her gift was immense. And we're thankful for her family for sharing her artwork. We have a few of her things in here, and I have my favorite with me today. This is a painting of the original pink elephant. Patty did this for me and finished it in 1992. This was a picture that was on my father's business card, and this is what the pink elephant looked like. Some of you probably remember that. It was really pink, and as Bobby and I have talked about, Dad was in the board of the library, and if you kind of look around, the roof is the same type roof as the library, and also it was that famous pink. Okay, welcome, Robert. We're so happy to have Captain Robert Johnson with us today, our historian. And he was one of the founding members of this History Bite program, he and Sally Van Italy, and carried it through for many, many years till he taught me the rules and regs and has given me the opportunity to be the presenter. So thank you, Robert, for those years. And Robert will be able to share with us after the presentation. I'll be able to give him the microphone, and he's got many stories to share about the Boca Grande Hotel.
Thank you, Betsy.
So now back to the commercial break. We'd like to thank Bobby and the Johann Fuss Library Foundation for the opportunity to present the History Bytes here. I'm not sure how many years, but I know this is our 21st year to do History Bytes. And I think everyone has been here except when they were under renovation and we were able to use the Baptist Church. So this logo, as Bobby points out, Patty Middleton did the logo. We've worked together as a team, and we're so happy to collaborate with the library. Thank you. We also have, this past week, we collaborated with the Art Center with a project. So we are coming together as a historic community, and please stop in the History Center, browse our archives online. All these programs are being videoed and are able to be watched through the History Center at a later date. We possibly will be able to have some of the past ones on Island TV at some point too. A special shout out to our board who's here today. Just raise your hand. And we have our own cover reporter who's been writing the articles for the Beacon to follow up on this. Thank you, Karen, for that. I'd like to introduce Kim Kyle, our administrative assistant up there, who handles all the rules and regs and the paperwork and is there to answer your phone. Also like to introduce Crystal Diff. She's our new executive director, and we've got a few more programs coming up. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about them. So Crystal, you want to come up?
Hi, thank you all for coming out today, and thank you all for wearing your masks. We do have to make sure that we're all wearing our masks today to abide the Foundation's policy. So please, if you do not have a mask, there are some up at the front that you can get. So we have those provided for you, and we really thank the Library Foundation and the librarians and everybody at the library for having us out here, especially during these times, and letting us have in-person programming. So thank you all for helping us to abide by that policy. We do have one really special program that's coming up in March. It's a special event with David Futch. He has a new book, so it's going to be his lecture, and also you'll be able to get an autographed book from David Futch. So please check that out. We also have a VIP reception. So if you'd like to mingle with the author and hear some stories of Boca Grande and growing up on Boca Grande, that's going to be a beautiful event. So that's at the end of March, March 25th. So please go over to our little booth there and pick up flyers for that and register online. So you can register online or you can call us up to participate. There are a multitude of different tickets available, even virtual tickets available if you'd like to stay home and watch the event from home. So we have provided every single option we possibly could think of for you to participate in this event. And that is our last event for the season. So we hope that many of you come out to that event and kind of end this season with us. So we've been so grateful for all of you participating with us and being patient, especially during these times. So thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our sponsor from Bank of America, Kimberly Bleach. It's March 22nd, not March 25th.
Thank you, Crystal. My name is Kimberly Bleach. I'm with the Bank of America Private Bank. For those of you who've been with us the last 7 years that we've been a sponsor, you've pretty much heard my pitch 28 times. So I'm not going to go through that again. I'm just grateful that we have a wonderful partnership with Boca Grande Historical Society. I want to thank you for allowing us to be here. It's part of this special club. And I want to give a special thanks to the board and the staff and Karen for writing those wonderful articles in Boca Beacon. So if you wouldn't mind joining me in a round of applause for the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's been a blessing and so much fun to work with Kimberly. She always has a special connection to Boca Grande forever. We hope she'll stay with us. Be sure to pick up the little gift that she gave you at the end. And at this point, I'm going to introduce Jim Blaha, and he's our archivist. And I can't even talk about how many hours he and his wife put in at the History Center, but we can't thank him enough. And Joseph Spadaro has been a special.
Sorry,
That's okay.
it's because we're right under the speaker, so just bear with me 1 second. Let's see if that works.
Okay. Joseph Spadaro and Boca Grande Hotel have been one of the most requested, I'm not going to take away from Jim, but one of the most requested topics through the years to have us tell about it. And Jim and his counterpart here, Peg and Tricia, I believe have got a great story to tell, and we're excited to have them share it. And I've already asked Jim, and I'm hoping that they'll come back next season too. Okay, Jim, that's yours.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm delighted that you're all here because I have been researching a man that I have grown to admire, although he died in 1952. As has been said, most category of questions that we get at the History Center relate to Joseph Spadaro and the Boca Grande Hotel. Very interesting. And so it was an incentive for me to do some research. And I have to tell you that as a result of this research, I think Peg will probably say the same thing, and Tricia. I have grown to admire the man. Now, every one of us, of course, claim that we're perfect, but we know we have some faults. So, faults aside, I warn you, the presentation, at least my part of it, will be one that reflects a fondness and a respect for what Joseph Spadaro contributed to Boca Grande. I refer to him as a forgotten citizen because when we researched the movers and the shakers of Gasparilla Island and Boca Grande, we usually mention people like Peter Bradley and so on. Joseph Spadaro's name does not often come up in that category. So we're here today to convince you that Joseph Spadaro should not be forgotten. And so I'm going to start this by introducing Peg Kapustiak. Peg is from the Venice Archives and Museum. And next to Peg is Tricia Lowe, who grew up on Boca Grande. And will share some of her memories of the Boca Grande Hotel. I've been shut off, right? Does my wife have this control? Okay? So I'd like to start by having you imagine that you're living in a place like, or you're living in Minnesota, or you're living in Illinois, someplace up north, and it's February. And you're experiencing the joys of winter up north. And you decide, I've had enough of this. I need to get down to Florida. But where should I go? Well, I've heard that Boca Grande is a good place. Well, where should I stay? So you go to your, this could be the 1940s or 50s, you go to your travel agent. Remember those people, travel agent? Or you begin a search. So you ultimately discover some brochures. Now these, and you read the following. Now, I'm sharing with you some actual comments from some of the brochures that we've been able to collect and put in our archives. Are you ready? Now think about this. You're in Minnesota. Ooh, it's cold out there. Okay. Finest fishing in Florida. Beautiful tropical setting. Best of accommodations. Restful atmosphere. Beach combing on 2 miles of private beach with the best swimming and shelling in Florida. Golf on our private, no-fee, 9-hole golf course in an uncrowded tropical setting. Fishing from boat, beach, or dock, unexcelled anywhere in the world. Room to relax on over 300 acres of grounds, perfect for cycling, picnicking, or just plain loafing to your heart's content. I'll go there. You will enjoy marvelous meals, large spacious rooms with individual air conditioning, the intimate new Tarpon cocktail lounge, roof sun deck, game and television rooms, and a diversified program of activities. This is the place. This is the year. Now is the time. Up to 7,000 pounds of tarpon boated daily. Don't miss the fun. Guess where? At the Boca Grande Hotel. Builder of that edifice, what some people have called that grand old lady, was one Joseph Spadaro. And of Joseph Spadaro, Pansy Cost, many of us know, remember Pansy Cost, said he knew his stuff. He knew what to do, he knew how to do it, and he knew how to make it last forever. And then she concluded, in a previous history, right, the man knew what he was doing. And then in a newspaper article in 1949, he is rated as one of Florida's premier West Coast developers. He was tremendously successful. So who was Joseph Spadaro? And we hope you will become more familiar with Joseph Spadaro, the man, and also his contributions to Southwest Florida. Joseph Spadaro was born in 1883 in Italy, in the province of Savoca, in the town of Messina. He immigrated to this country in 1905. There are some sources that say 1900, but the latest research based upon naturalization papers that we have found date his entry in 1905. On his naturalization application, he describes himself as a white male, brown eyes, swarthy complexion, and black hair, and his height was 5 feet 9.5 inches of stature. He marries a lady from Germany in this country. In the United States, she came from Germany. She came from Holstein, Germany. I believe she immigrated in 1890 to this country. So she was here before Joe came over. And her name was Margaret, or Marguerite, Marguerite Engelhardt Bodie. I believe what was her name. And Joe will marry Margaret in 1923. So he comes to this country in 1905. By 1926, he had amassed a considerable fortune and wealth. He came when he was 22 years old. Right? So how did this happen? Now, before we get into, and Peg's going to talk about that, I want to share with you a couple of stories that I really want to kind of get out of the way, but it's legend here on the island. And that's how he came, or what was the incentive to build a hotel on the island. So we always get questions about this. So if I could share with you very, very briefly, this is from an article from the Tampa Bay Times, published in 1968. As one hears the story, Mrs. Spadaro, Margaret, was a guest at the hotel. Now, this is supposedly around 1926. Mrs. Spadaro was a guest at the hotel and one day showed up in the lobby barefooted. Someone told me she walked into the dining room, by the way, barefooted. She was reprimanded for this astonishing social breach of the day. Joseph Bristle told his wife to pack, that he would build his own hotel. Now that's one of the stories, but I got a better one for you. This is from an article from the Tampa Bay Times in 1972. When Joe and Mama Spadaro, now note the reference to Joe, he becomes, people don't refer to him, I think Robert and Tricia would concur, refer to him as Joe, or many refer to him as Uncle Joe also, and Mama Spadaro. When Joe and Mama Spadaro decided on a Florida vacation, they chose Boca Grande. And the place to stay, they were told, was the Gasparilla Inn. Good enough for Lady Astor, the Wanamakers, the Tom Watsons, the Armors, the Stolten Stalls, the Cabots, and social registers, big leaguers all. A credit check was made on Joe's request for room reservation. Dun & Bradstreet reported unlimited credit. Joe and Mama arrived. I love this. This gets real juicy. I love it. Joe with a well-worn $25 suit. Now, can you picture the lobby of the hotel and all the proper dress and so on? Supposedly, he arrived with a $25 suit, and Mama with a gingham dress of considerable longevity and high-button shoes. Well, at least she had shoes on that day. Finally, the manager concluded the Spadaros were to be a dining room problem at the very least. Snobbery was ceiling high in those days, and the inn had some darn high ceilings. The next move was to try and talk the Spadaros into eating by themselves in a special dining room of your own. Joe saw through that one and flat out refused to go along with it. Then, in that case, said the manager, I must ask you to leave. A proud Joseph Spadaro said, all right, I'll build my own hotel here. And he did. Months later, when the Spadaro trucks showed up on the south end of town on a golf course, that would have been around Pilot Street and that area, and Golden Beach and so on, no one associated the name with the unwelcome Gasparilla Inn visit. Then one day, a representative of the Gasparilla Inn went over to the golf course and spoke to the man, someone identified as the boss. And they said to the boss, you'll have to move your trucks and equipment. You are on our golf course. And of course, they were talking to Joseph Spadaro. Now, I love this response. Joe supposedly said, then you'll have to remove your golf course because I just bought it. And I'm going to build my own hotel right on it. Now, if this is all the way the article report, I would have loved to have been there to witness that. So that is Joseph Spadaro. We'll talk more about the Boca Grande Hotel. So this 22-year-old, 1905, 1920, he has a fortune. I'm going to turn it over to Patty at this time.
Thank you, Jim. Am I on? Yep. Okay. Oh, and I can hear myself talking now. I would also encourage you, since I volunteer at the Venice Archives and Museum, and I also volunteer at Historic Spanish Point, which was recently purchased by the Selby Gardens. I would encourage, and I work in collections both places. I would really encourage you to go through your family history or your family photos and please donate them to the Historical Society. Tomorrow I'm talking at the Englewood Genealogical Society about how historical societies and resources can help in your family genealogy. And all of this or historical societies are based on what you contribute, what you donate. So this is how we found out a lot of material starting out with Joe Spadaro. I became interested in him because my husband's brother and sister-in-law bought one of the original homes. He built 5 homes in Venice, in what's an area called Golden Beach. He also built a hotel called the Venice Villas Hotel. And he also built a little complex of a number of little places, and I'll show you some pictures of that and wrap this around, called the Villas Hotels, which still exist, or the Villas they're called. He named the street that he was going to have his house on Easy Street. So I looked up a city directory and they're all living on Easy Street. Well, shortly after he passes away, Aero Corporation is formed and they changed the names to their names of the men who own the corporation, and that street becomes Spadaro. So my sister-in-law and brother-in-law live on Spadaro in one of the original homes. So that's how I got interested in the topic, because I like to do house histories. And so I was just fascinated. We have the same love of Joe Spadaro. He is just a character, but he's also a picture of an immigrant. I mean, an immigrant who arrives at age 22 and he marries a German immigrant, and I'm sure as a German she kept him in line. He was probably, off in different directions. But this guy, I'll just read you a few things that we found out, or that I found out when I was doing these articles, is that he was a self-made multimillionaire. At the time that he came into Gasparilla, he was probably worth over $1 million at that point. Now, that's when $1 million was $1 million, a million singles. You can picture a million singles. People were getting paid, 25 cents an hour or something. This was during the Depression, or just before the Depression. So this guy, it's okay that his wife is in a gingham dress. It was cool, it was comfortable. He's in a suit, he doesn't really work in a suit. He works outdoors, he's swarthy because he's Italian and he's working out in the sun. So he's a very interesting person. He was a self-made millionaire, immigrant from Italy. He was also said to have a photographic memory. All of the construction that he did, he never had a design plan. He drew it out on a napkin, he had it in his head. He also was a master of concrete, and this is before concrete was concrete. He developed all these different formulas for concrete depending on what the use is. So I'll talk a little bit about that. His brother, Tony, and I interviewed a couple of people back in 5 or 6 or 7 years ago who knew Anthony Spadaro, his brother, who inherited almost all of Joe's items when he passed away. And Joe said, you have to picture this, I can't do an Italian accent, but he would say in a heavy Italian accent that Tony would say, me, not so smart. Joe, he was the smart one, and he was. He came to the city, New York City, we don't know exactly when. He says 1905. My research shows more 1900, but whatever, he's here. And he starts working in the city's street department, either as a contractor, with a contractor, or for a contractor, I said, or for the city. But by 1908, he's got his own business, okay? He's got his own business, and he is building the holes, building the concrete walls for the subways in New York. He's building trains and laying trains in New York. He's building bridges and tunnels in New York, making googobs of money. And one of the ways he's making money is that they dig out the dirt. What do you do with the dirt? You sell it back to the city, okay? Or you sell it back to somebody who's got waterfront property and they want to raise it up. What do you do with the stones and gravel that you go through, okay? You sell it back to the city. You build streets, you build sidewalks, you build whatever, more concrete. So he was not a dummy, not a dummy. He also patented a few things. One of them is how to install drains and sewer pipes and tunnels and railroad paraphernalia using steam shovels. And I've got a picture in my collection here of part of that. And you can look at this later on, but this is a picture that we've got in the Venice collection. Again, another example of we never would have had this unless somebody gave it to us, you know? So if you've got anything that's interesting. He also developed a special formulas for concrete depending on their use. And he built a subdivision in White Plains, New York. I've got a picture of the street here. And the thing that's interesting about it is it's red brick, and we'll talk about red brick later because that's really interesting about the hotel with the red brick. And he, let's see, what else here? Why did he come to this area? Okay, so by the 1920s, you had the Seabird Airline Railroad, and it came down from Tampa, went to Tampa, and then it came along the coast. It went through Sarasota, it went to Venice, it went down to Englewood. Okay, so we were populating those areas. There were also 2 train lines that came out of the east. They went through Arcadia, and one of them came here, and I think it's the Northern Railroad, is that it? Northern Railway, came from Arcadia to Placida and Boca Grande. So visitors from the Midwest could take one set of railroads. Visitors from the east could take the other set of the railroads, and they were all pretty close to Point Hayes and to Gasparilla and down this way. The other thing that's interesting is that if you're working in concrete up in New York, it gets cold up there, so there's not a lot of work unless you're working underground. There's not a lot of work in the winter. So what do you do in the winter? You know, you've been working probably 22 hours with Joe, probably 22 hours a day during the time that he could do it, and then he would come with his wife and family, etc. Not his family, children, but nieces and nephews probably, and his friends, and they would come down here where it was nice and warm, okay? But when he got down here, he realized that things were happening. Now, the story that I heard was that when he was, he invested in hotels, he invested in the area around Lake Okeechobee, he had citrus farms out there, he invested into Tampa, he invested into Sarasota, he bought the old American National Bank in Sarasota, converted it into the Orange Blossom Hotel, and what's the thing that everybody worried about at one point? Fire. Fire. If you had a wooden hotel, oh my God, you know, fire. You're worried about fire. So he rebuilt the buildings, everything that he took over, both the Morgan Hotel in Fort Myers and the Orange Blossom Hotel in Sarasota, he rebuilt them so that they were fireproof. He also tried to air condition them in some way, shape, or form, either by the shape of the building, which Jim will talk about with the hotel, or like the hotel that he was planning in Venice, with lots of cross ventilation, etc., etc. And then he also was worried about hurricanes because he had been involved in the 1928. There was a terrible hurricane that came through the center of Florida, and Lake Okeechobee, okay, came up over its banks onto the north edge. The eye went apparently right through the lake, came up 20 feet, and then as the eye left, it went back and went 20 feet. And there were, let me just double check the number, there were over 2,500 people that died. Now, Lake Okeechobee, there's not a lot of people around that area, but 2,500 people were killed, and they only found 1,600 of the bodies. The rest of them washed away somewhere into the Everglades. And so he was one of the contractors that came in the mid-30s, which I think, Jim, I think that's why you applied for U.S. citizenship at that time. Because you couldn't get a government contract unless you were a U.S. citizen. But anyway, he applied for citizenship, but he also built part of the concrete structure. There are almost 84 miles of concrete around Lake Okeechobee. If you go to see Lake Okeechobee, you gotta get out of your car and climb up the hill, you know, and look at Lake Okeechobee. So he was part of that contracting, and at the Venice Museum we have some of that paperwork and things. He also was a land developer in the sense that he would buy property and then build these nice hotels. He knew what people wanted. He knew that people that could afford to get away for a while and come down here had money. He wanted them to have a good time, is the information that Jim told you about. He wanted them to be happy and have a good time and lots of things to do. He wanted the food to be great, he wanted the service to be great, he wanted the rooms to be great, everything. But he also realized that there were groups of people that wanted to come down here and live, or they wanted small little places, and they wanted their own little plot of land and grow their vegetables or their fruit or whatever it was. And so he built the hotels, but he also, in Venice, he built a couple of things. Next to the hotel, he bought what's called the Venice Villas, and I've got some pictures of that. Oh, and we also have a key from the hotel. This is just a photocopy of it. We've got a key from the hotel here. And I think that Jim has a copy of those too. But anyway, so he, here's the Orange Blossom Hotel that's down in Sarasota. And this is the other, this is a brochure that has both your hotel and the hotel up in Sarasota, you know, fireproof and, you know, everything else. And then this is the Venice Villas. And they don't look like much. They're just a series of buildings. They're sort of quad buildings. I think there's 6 or 8, depending on where you are, and they're kind of in a horseshoe shape. They're small little places. They were originally one-rooms. They were intended for people for short stays, but now they've been expanded and they're now condos, and so you can buy a condo. But he also built a series of buildings. Well, he started them, I should say, and then his brother Tony finished them in an area that's called Golden Beach. It's immediately south of what had been the city limits that had been designed by John Nolan, the planner, which you can find out more about. Built these little tiny houses, and my brother-in-law's home is unbelievable. It doesn't look like much. We had a Uber driver who said that it looked like his grandmother's house in Blue Island, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. But anyway, it doesn't look like much. But you walk inside of it, and it's like the opposite. It is the direct opposite of a black hole. You walk into it, and it like expands. There's 3 bedrooms. 2 of the bedrooms are big enough that you can put 2 king-size beds next to one another, each having their own dresser, having, 10 feet or 8 feet between the end of the bed and the dresser, and each one of the bedrooms has their own bathroom. Now they're small. And they also have a powder room. So they have 4 bathrooms in 3 bedrooms, and I always joke about the powder room. I always say you can sit on the toilet and brush your teeth at the same time, but it doesn't matter. It's a bathroom. It's what people wanted. And this was a house that he built for his physician who was going to come down from New York and stay in Venice. So the buildings that he sold there, they went to George Knudsen, who was a former senator from Minnesota, George Preston, who was a business manager for the Spadaro company. He had built one for himself. And then after he passed away, his brother bought the building and expanded it a little bit. And he also built one for a fellow named Homer Myers. And then the 5th house, which he had planned for his physician, became the house that was then taken by, was then sold to another physician. The Kaplan, Dr. Kaplan, was one of the founders of Venice Hospital. And then my brother-in-law is also a physician. So the building has been owned by physicians since it was built almost, 70 years ago. But anyway, it's a fantastic thing. I've got lots more that I could tell you about him, but just to give you an idea of what the guy was like, he was at the Morgan Hotel. They talk about, so this is also a story that I've heard about your hotel. They talk about Joe walking in, and so they refused admittance to the Gasparilla Inn due to his sun-darkened skin. He's working outdoors, and said they were told to apply for jobs at the kitchen. So then he said, "Well, I'm going to buy this hotel, or build my own hotel." A similar story is told of the Morgan Hotel in Fort Myers, where the manager actually refused him admittance. So he had been spending a lot of time in Fort Myers. He was building the city's first sewer system with his concrete, of course. So he bought the hotel within a short period of time in 1942, and he fired that manager. That's the first thing he did. So he only owned the hotel till 1950. I think he had cancer by that time and was not feeling real well. But he was a very, very interesting man. And I have to go back to Tony's quote. Tony described him as having a photographic memory, being able to just plan everything on the back of a piece of paper or a napkin or something. But Tony always said, "Me, not so smart. Joe, he was the smart one."
Thank you, Betty. Appreciate that. Well, let's now turn our attentions to the Boca Grande Hotel on Gasparilla Island. Construction, we think, regardless of what incentive you choose to believe in terms of why you decided to build this hotel. He imported, I believe, many of this crew came from New York.
Yeah, they came down with it. They
They
didn't
came
have
down
jobs.
with it
Winter,
and moved down here. The projected costs, and at this point in time, I'd like to make sure you have your handout so you can look at the pictures of the inn. But the projected cost for that hotel was $250,000. Now, obviously, the final cost probably, I should say safely, were higher than that, but I have yet to discover what those costs were. It opened, the formal opening for the hotel was January 1, 1931. Now, by the way, the land that we're talking about, if you all know where this was located, was south of First Street. You all know where First Street is, and go south almost to the port property at that time. He purchased, at one time there was a military reservation which had been created prior to the Civil War because of the location of Boca Grande. So Mr. Spadaro, in 2 installments, or I'm going to call him Uncle Joe like everybody else.
Yep.
Uncle Joe purchased in 2 installments the military reservation. His first purchase was, he purchased 40% of it in 1926, and then he purchased most of the remaining military reservation in 1928. And construction began sometime between 1928 and 1929, but it opened January 1, 1931. Now, if you look at the picture of it, no, it's a large, solidly constructed 3-story brick building consisting of 4 wings projected at right angles from a central core, the atrium. One article described it as follows. The lavishly appointed lobby was situated in the central area, opening skyward to a dome constructed at the 4th floor level. And we're talking about brick and concrete. And there are other features that reflected strength and stability. Balconies connected by stairs encircled each of the floor levels. There were elevators, and the lobby floor was tiled with marble. The property included a golf course, a riding stable, a landing strip, tennis courts, a fishing lodge. You see there's another building behind there. That's 3-story brick building. And by the way, we do also have this mural or mosaic, which is a copy of what we have at the History Center. So a fishing lodge, and that's where once the Boca Grande Club or Tarpon Club was located, in that 3-story building. That building would also be open during the summer months to accommodate visitors, I believe. And a private beach with an attractively designed beach house, the golf course, and a clubhouse. And by the way, we have been deeded some of the flooring, beautiful flooring front of that clubhouse. So it was truly a grand edifice. And for many years, the hotel enjoyed great success, attracting an international clientele. And I'm going to, in a couple of minutes, turn it over to Tricia to share her memories, but I've got to share this with you. This is, any of you remember James Symington? The son of Stuart Symington, I think, who was Secretary of the Air Force and also a senator from Missouri, right? That's correct. Well, this is a testimony. This is in the 1960s. The hotel, by the way, will close closed its doors in 1969, but we'll get back to that if time permits. Okay, this is James Symington. Looking at the descriptions of the two hotels, that would be the Inn and the Boca Grande Hotel, we decided to try the Boca Grande Hotel. In Venice, we picked up a little used Corvair and drove it down to the island with nothing in sight but pelicans and wonderful seabirds, and past the beautiful Gasparilla Inn. We kept going until we found the somber structure. The Boca Grande Hotel on the Gulf Boulevard, which seemed abandoned. This is now the 1960s now. There was not a soul in sight. There were 4 great wings that met in the center lobby. The only person at the desk was a gray-headed man who was asleep with his head on the desk and with a bell next to him. Well, I said, I guess I better wake him up. I banged on the bell, bing bang, and he sat up and said, I love this, oh, you must be a Symington. Sure enough, we were the only people that had registered. I think they were about to close. We were the only people there, except there were about 7 wonderful Boston Irish priests on a retreat who became our best friends over the next few days. There was another fellow who collected shells, which was a smelly nuisance. They weren't dead yet, or they were dying. A woman named Irene, who made very fine daiquiris and could cook grouper as well as anyone you ever saw, was present. We walked into the little alcove, and there the priests were having a jolly good time. And there was a piano in the lobby. Someone they called Madame Beethoven played for them every night. Now, I would like, if any of you, Robert, anyone know who Madame Beethoven was, I would really like to know who that person was. So that's one of the memories. And for other memories, Tricia?
Okay. Well, where I come into play is my grandmother she lived on the island, and she was hired by Joe Spadaro to be the head housekeeper at the Boca Grande Hotel. And after his death, she stayed on as assisting him with the management of the hotel until they could find a manager. And she took one of the rooms at the end of one of the wings and stayed there for quite a while, and I would come and visit. So as a child, it was a wonderful playground, especially during the summer months when there wasn't much going on. But you've seen pictures of the hotel. It sat far off of the road, both accesses off of First Street and Gulf Boulevard. And even as a kid, I thought it was a hike to get into the building itself. There was a walkway off of First Street where there's an entrance to Boca Bay right now off of First Street, and that was the walkway to get into the hotel, one of them. The other one was off of Gulf Boulevard, off of the parking lot, and there was a covered walkway. It had an incline, and you would reach a sunroom, which was a beautiful room filled with wicker furniture and very light, to get into the lobby, to get into the front desk. So I found it very difficult to access. I'm doing some repeating here, but as a child, I remember the marble floors in the sunroom and in the lobby. The lobby had palm trees in it, they were planted, and the staircases were beautiful. They were wide and winding up the stairs to get to each floor. The lobby, as you heard, was rotund. The ceiling had a dome ceiling, and all the floors were wrapped around the center. It also had 2 elevators, 1 TV. The wings were 3 stories. There was a walkway in the center of each wing with rooms on each side. Some of them had suites. There was no air conditioning, and they had radiators for heat. And what I refer to as the east wing was a dining room. You had steps to go down into the dining room, and during its heyday, it was a beautiful, elegant looking room. There was a center aisle, and the tables were on the right-hand side, but the silver, they had big silver platters, big silver water pitchers, big silver coffee urns, and the china, they had a china for every course that was served. They had small silver teapots and even Dimitas cups and small Dimitas spoons. During the season, it was beautiful. It was very elegant looking, but yet I understand the apparel was very casual. It was meant to be casual. My favorite place to hang out was on the rooftop. It was flat, but the dome was in the middle, and I believe the dome also let light into the downstairs building and downstairs lobby. I had a cousin, a little bit older than myself. His name was David, who had come to visit as well. He introduced me to the bar. And I didn't know till years later that a Shirley Temple was not the same thing, or Jack and Ginger was not the same thing as a Shirley Temple. My grandmother found this out quickly and took care of that. But, so my grandmother was there until they hired management. And then, as you have seen, where the hotel was destroyed in 1972. My mother, myself, my grandmother, and my aunt all drove over and stood on the side of the road to watch the beginning of the demolition, which was very, very, very sad. Then after the hotel closed, and then Tony Spadaro passed away in the early 90s, they had a Spadaro auction in Venice. And I went, and so did a lot of people from the island, and so did a lot of antique dealers. And I recognized a lot of the pieces that they had from the hotel. There were a lot of the wicker furniture, a lot of the wood furniture in the bedrooms, and tapestries, draperies, and my interest was the china. And there was, so I was seeking out to where to find the china, and I was told by the auctioneer that it was in a sealed, that he thought the china was in a sealed barrel, and they would not open it up. So there were two other girls from the island that we got together, and I said, I really want this china. So the three of us got together, and when it came time to bid, we started bidding against other people, and the bid kept going up, and finally it got reduced to the three of us against one man, and finally at $1,000 the man backed out. Wow. And so we got, again, not knowing for certain what was in it did turn out to be the china, and it was wrapped in newspaper from the 1950s, early 52, 53, 54. And I later found out who we were bidding against, which was Gar Beckstead, who owned Uzeppa, and he wanted it for the Uzeppa Inn. But we won. So I've had, my grandmother spoke wonderful of Mr. Spadaro. Apparently he was very kind and generous to all of his staff. There is at the end of the dining room was a kitchen. And Mr. Spadaro's relative, his name was Camille, was the gardener there. And I remember my grandmother cooking for him 3 meals a day. And he would always bring in his vegetables, which was usually tomatoes, I think it was tomatoes. But at the back entrance of the kitchen, This building in the back, when I was a kid, was used as dormitories for the help. And I often went there, and it was a dirt road, but to get to that dormitory was a pond, and some pictures show a pond, and there was always an alligator or two sitting there sunning themselves. So actually, it was a shorter distance to get to First Street if you went back, instead of trying to leave from the sidewalk to get to First Street. But I have very fond memories. I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to be there with my grandmother and live the history that it offered.
Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate your sharing of those memories.
Jim, could I just say, it's okay, everybody can hear me. Her grandmother was Matilda Pope, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add about Joe was quite famous for the kindness that he showed and the concern that he showed for all of his help, whether it was the New York staff or the staff down here in Florida. In addition, I didn't mention that in addition to the 5 buildings that he built in the Golden Beach area subdivision, they also had a huge warehouse, and that's where many of the items were stored that came out of the hotel. Tony just put them in there, plus all their equipment, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole second floor of this building, which took up 2 lots in Venice, the whole second story was housing for his workers. So he was really concerned about people and their families, and as I said, they called him Uncle Joe. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, time is fleeting, but I do need to close this, but I'm not one who is known for brevity. But I do want to mention that China, we have some of the China on display at the History Center. I hope you will get a chance to come visit us. This is volume 1 of which I've created on Joseph Spadaro. This is volume 2, which is mainly the family genealogy. And I'm working on volume 3, which deals with the demolition, details of the demolition. And I have the detail of Joseph Spadaro's will, but that's another story. And we won't have time to go into, but the story about demolition is great. Come on in, so I can share that with you. But the hotel will have its ups and downs in terms of success, especially when it gets into the 1960s. It will, and Joseph Spadaro, after a year of illness, of cancer, suffering from cancer, will die on October 25, 1952. Now, what is interesting is that his wife, Margaret, died in 1948. Guess which date? October 25. On October 25. And at the Boca Grande, he died at the Boca Grande Hotel. And last rites were at the Catholic Church in Venice. The church in those days was called the Church of the Epiphany, I believe. And he was buried next to his wife at the Myrtle Hill Cemetery in Tampa. As Peg said, he had 3 brothers he had 3 brothers in the United States. He had at least 2 brothers in Italy. He had a sister. But 66% of his will, of his property, all his holdings, went to Tony, my brother, Tony Spadaro. Okay, it's fascinating to see where the other percentages went. It really is. But you need to come and talk to me. Find that out. But in 2001, there was a history bite. Well, I should say it closes its doors in 1969. It will be purchased by the owners of the Gasparilla Inn, okay, for $1 million, the hotel property, for $1,700,000. okay, the Boca Grande Hotel property. And then the demolition, as Tricia said, occurs in 1972. And I've got all kinds of stories you wouldn't believe. Well, you got to come to Henderson. But in 2001, there was a history bite, and the history bite was called Island Angel. And it honored the following people: Louise DuPont Crowninshield, Roger and Louise Amory, we know these names, we're familiar with these names. Beatrice, I think her nickname was Timothy Smith, was mainly involved in the community center renovation, and Joseph Spadaro. And this is what was said about Joseph Spadaro at that history bite. He was small in nature, but extremely large in heart. If you fell upon hard times and were a friend of Joe, he would always help with the gift of money. A long-term loan, or smooth the way with his widespread influence to get you out of your present trouble. This reflects what Peg said, how kind he was. And he insisted that any such aid should be kept very quiet. He always helped, but he wanted no publicity of any kind for his assistance. We, in deference to Joe's wishes during his life, will not name names of recipients of his kindness, but for many, an Islander still living today, surely Joe Spadaro was an angel. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing before I pass it off to Captain Robert Johnson. Thanks to Tricia Lowe, we do have those items on display, so please check out the History Center. We have some of the china and also some of the silverware, and you mentioned a key. We do also have a key and chandelier earrings that were made from the chandeliers of the hotel. So we do have those on display at the History Center if you'd like to see those. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Robert Johnson. He can take questions and make comments. If you all want to kind of come up over here and just have a little casual meeting with him and learn some more history. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what to say. All of you have done a magnificent job, and I thank you for it, because Justice Spadaro should not be forgotten. He was a fine man, generous, and he was a man with a heart, as one of you said. And I remember being an employee of the hotel when I was in high school. I was a bellman, and some of the first money I made after being out of school was bellman at the Boca Grande Hotel. And it was very enjoyable for me. Actually, I made a lot of money. So, have any questions, anybody?
We're at the speakers. Yeah, let's take questions.
We'll stay around a few minutes afterwards if you'd like to come up and look at it.
Can you be more specific as to exactly where it's located? I know that it's close to First, so would it be fair
Okay,
to
so
say?
you're on First Street, right?
Yeah,
So then just go south.
yeah.
The entryway, as I remember it, Trish, it was probably around where the entry is to Boca Grande, Boca Bay North. Basically, the Boca Bay development.
Yeah.
That
North
was the
Village.
property.
So it was south of the range line,
Yes.
Well,
because it's
Oh,
the
north,
range
I'm
line
sorry,
picture.
north.
Oh, you're talking about the other, what we call the,
range line, not the lighthouse.
right, the range light, correct.
yes.
Yes, it was. It was, I think I mentioned the
It was
gate.
north of the range line.
No, it was south of the range. Yes.
North. We're going to turn around north.
Right.
Does that answer your
Yes, thank you.
You've got memories over there.
Yeah, we live on First Street, okay? You go from Gilbert, it's First Street all the way south. It's the entire Boca Bay. The whole lot from our houses on First Street between the community center and Gilchrist. And from our front porches, we look straight at this monstrous brick building. It's the entire lot from First Street south, all the way down.
And I am told that people still find bricks now and then in that area from the
I think it should
hotel.
be noted that the Gasco Inn's interest was not in the hotel, but in the property that went with the hotel, which, as has been noted, went all the way to the south end of the island. And the hotel was torn down by the Gasco Inn, probably because they didn't need competition. Some people said that there was deficiencies in the electrical system and the plumbing system and so on and so forth, which could have been, but essentially and basically, they wanted the property that went with the hotel, which now is Boca Bay development.
The property, they had difficulty demolishing it. I have the name of the contractor and the details. There was a probe, but no charges were ever levied against the wrecking company that was awarded the contract. But they tried, I've read anywhere, dynamite, 150 dynamite sticks at least, bulldozing, no, couldn't knock it all down. The problem with the dynamite, and I'm not a contractor, but the mortar between the bricks was not the usual type of mortar that was used. What Joe did was use concrete as a mortar. So the dynamite could not dislodge the bricks from the concrete. It was such a structure, it was such an edifice. Jeff Gaines called it that grand old lady, the grand old, it could be part of a fictional grand hotel.
And the property in Venice, I just want to mention, the little houses in Venice are all raised 18 inches to 2 feet high on a pad of concrete. There's no basement. It's just a pad of concrete. And then it's the same red brick that you had at the hotel here. He was using that same brick up in Venice to build his hotel and to build the little houses. So he knew about hurricanes.
Go ahead.
Is it true that Uncle Joe owned the dredged the Damify Care Streets? And also, I think he was a partner in the Florida Bridge Company that built the original.
Yes, he was.
That's
He was
correct,
majority
yes.
partner.
That's correct.
Yes, he was a partner with Shuckman and Baynard, I believe. I think it-
That development just past that area of the bay was called the Golden Beach Estates, which I find it interesting, had Golden Beach up there too.
Golden Beach 1, 2, and 3 on the island,
Yeah.
same as in Venice.
I have one memory that my mother shared, and I believe Sarah Peach shared, and probably Pansy, and probably all of our grandparents or parents. 1944 was a really devastating hurricane in Boca Grande. Mr. Hammond probably can tell that too. And my mother said everyone went to the Boca Grande Hotel. That's where you went to stay. And I know Sarah Peach tells the same, we all told that story, is with the chandeliers and then the glass windows and everything, that all those windows and everything broke in the pressure as the eye passed off shore. My mother tells about being in the single beds in the bedrooms, as even the guests, they all had single beds in those days, and the beds rolling across back and forth as the building kind of swayed with the winds. But there was no damage to the hotel, only to the glass, the windows and things.
Now, I was told, and you know, 2 and 2 does not always equal 4. When you do research in terms of archival type of work. But I was told that those inlets by the dam streets and that area, by the way, that's where the juke joint was located. And there are great stories about that I could share with you if you come to the.
That was on First Street.
That was on First Street, and around First Street in Palm, I
That
believe. It was.
is true, Jim. There was what we Southerners call a juke joint there, which served the black community. And the black community extended north from First Street to about 4th Street. on Third Street is, and all the way from Bayou Drive to on to Bayou Drive, and very viable, active black community, and that was their socialization spot, so to speak. Fred Lee owned it, a black man,
And Fred Lee is cited as the only black property owner on the island at that time. His wife Nancy and his son Howard Lee. There are stories about that, but I want to get back to the question that was asked. I was told, and I need to be corrected if I'm wrong, that those inlets were dredged to provide boat slips for the guests at the Boca Grande Hotel.
I don't know that that's a fact, but that is probably true, yes.
We think that's true.
Well, he certainly did that in Venice. When he built the Venice villas, they took an old creek, which is still there, and they built a huge boat slip, and they used it for both the hotel and for the little villas that were built. So at least it happened in Venice in the early 1950s.
Robert, did you visit the juke joint? Did you spend time?
I remember standing outside the quote-unquote juke joint and listening to early rock and roll song titled Hearts Made of Stone.
Mr. Hammond, do you have anything else? You've got some great memories.
No, I'm just curious about we have a map in our house, a painted map, and in front of the hotel, just on its beach, sort of where the Boca Bay little beach pool place is now, it looks like something called Rusty's hot dog stand or something like that.
There was Rusty's.
Rusty's hot dog
It
stand.
was a grill, yeah, Rusty's Grill.
Rusty's
or
Grill.
something, yeah. And it was there in the later years of the Boca Grande Hotel, right? Yeah.
Was that part of the hotel? I never knew what that was.
I think it was connected. It was part of the old beach.
Well, that was their beach. That was their beach.
That was their club, right? And where the iron jetties and things were. And Rusty had it was great when we were young teenagers. That was a great hangout to go, and you could get hot dogs and hamburgers and things like that. And I mean, it wasn't just us; everybody went there, though.
Betsy, I just want to personally thank Tricia and Peg and Robert for sharing with us. And if you have any stories you could share with us to add to our fan club for Uncle Joe, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just like to thank everyone. This has been a great season. Kind of sorry it's going to end, but please, if you have anything you want to share, any family photos, anything that you have about Boca Grande, you didn't have to be born and raised here. You could have come 15 years ago. Whatever memories that you have, we'd love for you to stop in the center, come and enjoy the panoramic views of the island. Jim has not only these 3 notebooks, he's got stacks of notebooks and things that he's done. We have such great exhibits going on there, and there's so much to be. You can go online, go through the archives. One of the things that I wanted to mention is we did a program last season called the Boca Grande Icons. We were not able to do our history tour of the houses, and so we did it online with the help of Island TV and with Vic and Karen and a few others. And you can go on and see those still on our history site, and each one is individual talk about history, about the home. There's a talk about the DuPonts. Mr. Hammond has talks on that one. I have a talk on there. There's a story about the murals of the Temptation. There's a story about Mrs. Crownishaw's pool. It's a great resource that if you can't watch History Bytes in person, you can go watch that and catch up on all the other stories. And please, we're looking forward to next season. Any ideas, anything you have, any comments, anything, we'd love to hear them.